Good evening, students. A warm welcome to your English class of Sri Ramanuja Vidya Mandir. Here we are with our vocabulary building class. Well, students, today in our vocabulary building class, we'll go with a quick way of improving your vocabulary. Here we are with some daily use of smart words in English vocabulary. We'll go with some smart words, students, okay, or how to improve or to use smartly your vocabulary. We are all looking for some quick ways to sound more fluent in English, aren't we? We are always like that. No matter how much fluent you are in your English, students, still you want to garnish your dish. You want to add good spice to your dish so that it's very tasty. And when people listen to your English, you should be a remarkable person in speaking English. We are all urging for it. So here we are looking for some quick ways to sound more fluent in English. I understand that it is annoying when there are only a few words stuck in our head, like awesome, cool, chill, and epic. And we keep using them for everything, right? The thing is, we are very fond of learning vocabularies, and then we try to use the same words for everything. We have only few words in our brain, and when we use them in every situation, the same word we try to use because we don't get other words. We are not habited of abundant vocabulary. So of course we feel very annoying when there are only a few words stuck in our head. Okay? So we try to keep more and more to develop a vocabulary. Right. So how about some smart words which you can use in your daily life to instantly elevate your vocabulary in a few minutes? So instantly, we keep on explaining you. I tell you a lot of words through the articles and all. I try to give you some root words. I try to give you meanings. But the most important part of not just listening to the lectures, but to jot all those words down, and whenever you are going to speak, utilize them. Of course, in the initial, it's very, very difficult. I've explained you, students. I've told you a foreign, familiar, friend. What is foreign? Something which you are not habited of, which you never have heard previously, is a foreign word. Then when you keep on listening to the same word again and again, it becomes a familiar word. These are the 3 F's. It becomes a familiar word. Now when you start speaking, foreign word, when you keep on listening, it becomes familiar. But familiar word, when you keep on speaking, it becomes a friend. Then you are habited with that word. It becomes simple. So from your childhood, when you are using your English, you must have experienced the 3 F's. What are the 3 F's? First one is foreign. The next one is familiar. And the next one is friend. So here we are, students. When you are learning new vocabulary, try to keep on listening to it again and again. Or at least every day, try to see, when we teach you a lot of vocabulary, probably that vocabulary is important for me, and I feel this is more important in your daily usage, and I tell you. but you may feel in your situation that's not that much useful. So whatever vocabulary we teach you, out of that, whichever words are useful to you in your daily usage, what you speak, whichever is words are very, very useful, those words you put them down. A very, very simple task, I tell you, students. You must have had a room for yourself, or at least a study desk, a study table. Take sticky notes, 2 words or 3 words, big enough for you to see from a distance. Write on them and stick onto the wall. So whenever you're coming at your desk and when you look into those words, you just have the word and the meaning at the bottom. You just stick them up there, the word and the meaning. So keep on filling the wall with your vocabulary. And whenever you look into that word, yes, the meaning is this. So when you are writing, when you're reading, or when you're trying to speak to somebody, especially when you're writing your essays, your articles, look into those words and try to put them down. A trick to learn vocabulary very, very easily. So students, now onwards, whichever words you feel is more important in your life, in your situations, put them down, write them down, put the meaning on, and stick it onto the wall. Here we are, to make yourself turn your foreigners into familiars and the familiars into friends. So how about some smart words which you can use in your daily life to instantly elevate your vocabulary in a few minutes? So you have the vocabulary on the wall, and whenever you're speaking, you try to elevate, you try to build up your vocabulary, you try to expose yourself as an English native person. And then people will be admiring you, looking upon you. It's so nice. Fine. Today we will learn some daily uses of smart words, their meanings, root words with example sentences. So today we will learn some words, and I'm going to give you the smart words, and along with the smart words I give their meanings and the root words from where the word is derived, and then few example sentences so that it will be easy for you to understand the word. So let's get going. The first word, swamped. You must have seen swamped. The word is, okay. Well, you have the word swamped, and then you also have the phonetic transcription. I've given you the phonetic transcription, students. I suppose you can see. Swa, this is O. Sir, W is wa. Circle your lip and say wa, swa. And this is O, swa. Swamped. So you're pronouncing as swamped. Swaw and MPT, swamped. So please understand how to pronounce the word. The phonetic is given here and the pronunciation for your easy understanding is written here. So you pronounce this as swamped. Now what does it mean? Swamped is getting sunk, drowned. Okay, see, when there is a heavy rain, the area gets flooded up. And then it's so moist. You can see here, students, you can see here the trees and the water getting stagnant here completely. So that area is completely dampy, very, very dampy, moist, and you're going to get swamped into it. Means you're going to get sunk or drowned into it. So here we are with the meaning, students. Though the word means drowning, flooded, swamped is used in the context of work. Fine. General meaning of swamped is to drown. I've told you, drown, to go inside. Flooded. When there's a stagnance of water, you sink, you get drowned. So though the word means drowning, flooded, drowning or flooded, swamped is used in the context of work. But when you're using in the work, okay, general meaning is drowning or water, flooded water. But when you're talking about your work, you have some work to do. Sometimes you will be using this word. I don't know how many of you use this word. You say, oh my God, I'm sunk with a lot of assignments. I'm drowning in my work. Fine, students? Drowning, sunk are simple words. Let us use a spicy word. That's swamped. So swamped is used in the context of work. The phrase swamped with work is an informal way to say I'm extremely busy. Swamped, I'm completely drowned in my work. I can't come out of my work. That's the meaning. So this is very, very useful for the students. I'm swamped. I'm completely swamped with my assignments. I'm swamped with the work for the whole day. Let us see from where the swamp word has come. A swamp or swampland, I've just now showed you swampland. Swampland is an area full of water. Swampland, okay? Fine. So, a swamp or swampland is a wet, spongy land. A person walking in a swamp could easily drown if they stepped in the wrong spot. Therefore, as a verb, swamp means to sink. So when you are walking in a dumpy, generally we call it a mire. You know what's the meaning of a mire? Okay. It's completely grass on top, but underneath there is water. So when you step into it, you get drowned. Okay. Dal, what we call. It's it looks like land outside, but when you step, you get drowned into it. That's swamp. So swamp means to sink. Here we are. Okay. So when you take a wrong step, you get swamped, you get drowned, you get sunk. Okay. So this is a swamp. So where do we use it? So if you have too many projects to submit and a test coming up and your friends want you to hang out with them, you can say, I'm so sorry, I'm swamped with work, or I'm swamped. So see, imagine you're having a lot of projects to do. You have a lot of work to complete and your exams are close. Next week is your exams. You have to prepare. You have to practice for it. And then your friend comes and say, let us hang out on the roads. Let us enjoy for a few hours. Let us go out. Then you'll say, I'm sorry. I'm swamped with work, or I'm swamped. I'm completely drowned with my work. I'm sorry, I can't come. You say that. Well, we have examples. I'm so swamped with work this entire week, I have no time to breathe. My God, even I forgot to breathe. Of course, if you don't breathe, you die. That's not the matter. Here, I have no time to breathe means you have so much of work that you have no time to relax. So here you use the word swamped. I'm so swamped with work this entire week, I have no time to breathe. Now the other words which we can use instead of swamped are, you use instead of swamped are, I'm drowning in work, I'm deluged. I'm deluged in assignments, I'm tired up and overwhelmed with things to do. Or, there is too much on my plate. A good idiom, students. We are also learning idioms. There's too much on my plate. Fine? Okay. Now the second word. Catch 22. Catch 22. You have the phonetic here. Of course, you can pronounce this word. It's not a new word. You often use the word catch. So catch 22. What does this represent? So I've given you the phonetic of catch. Catch 22 written by Joseph Heller. You can see Joseph Heller. He's written a book on catch 22. Now what is the meaning of catch 22? You know, You can't go front, you can't go back, and you're caught in 22, catch 22. That means if you don't do this, you can't do that. And if you can't do that, you can't do this. Both are linked up. Unless and until you do this, you can't do that. And if you can't do that, you can't do this. This is called catch 22. So, the meaning is an impossible situation where you are prevented from doing one thing until you have done the other thing. Both are important, students. Okay, this is one thing and this is another thing. So, you can't choose, shall I do this first or shall I do this first? No. Unless you do this, you can't do this. And unless you do this, you can't do that. That's called catch 22. So an impossible situation where you are prevented from doing one thing until you have done another thing. That you cannot do until you have done the first thing. Both this and that is interlinked. So you have to do, it comes simultaneously and you can't opt for one. First I will do this, then I will do that. No, it can't be possible. Here we are with a small example. I am in catch 22 situation. I cannot get a job without work experience, and to get work experience, I first need a job. Understood, students? When you go to a company, people say, what is your experience? Arey, first somebody should give you a job na. And when you do a job, you will get work experience. If nobody is giving you a job and everybody is asking for an experience, then how will you get a job? To get an experience, you need a job. And to get a job, you need an experience. Interlinked. So I'm caught in catch 22. So to have a job, you need experience. To have experience, first you should get a job. So this is called catch 22. I'm in a catch 22 situation. I cannot get a job without work experience. And to get work experience, I first need a job. That's a catch 22. Now we'll see from where this word catch 22 has come. This phrase was coined by Joseph Heller. I've told you he's written a book, Joseph Heller. This phrase was coined by Joseph Heller in his famous book by the name Catch 22. The name of the book is also Catch 22. To explain some contradictory rules faced by the soldiers during the Second World War. During the World War II, how many problems the soldiers has faced. Either cases they are in difficulty. Okay, their people must be in the opposite army. They can't kill them because they have to show their patriotism. And if they doesn't kill them, they are going to be traitors. So they are caught, or you can say they are in a situation of catch 22. So in that book, you have so many contradictory rules of World War II. Fine, we have another example here. Getting a loan from a bank is like a catch 22 situation where the only way to qualify for a loan is to first prove the bank that you don't need a loan. So supposing you're going to a bank for a loan, the bank people say, put some property as a mortgage. You want some money, show a property, show some gold. Now, if you really have the property and if you really have gold, why will you go to bank? Simple logic. See, when you go to a bank for loan, they want you to put a property. And if you have a property, you don't need to go to a bank for a loan. So it's a catch 22. Right? So when you're going for a loan, you have to show your property. And to have a property, you need a loan. To purchase a property, you need a loan. So this is another example of catch 22. Now the usage. If you are ever caught in such a tricky situation, remember to use the word catch 22 and get admiring looks over your friends. So most probably in your classes, in your situations, you often have this jammed up situation. You get jammed up. And then your teacher, she says, come on, you have to get a very good mark. And to get a good mark, you need time to study. But at the same time, they give you a lot of works. And they say you have to complete this work. But unfortunately, God gives us only 24 hours for a day. And in the 24 hours, all this to be completed. I'm in a catch 22. So you can utilize these kind of words when you are in a tough situation or when you are in a jammed up situation. You're not knowing which one to choose. You're caught. Then you use the word catch-22. Now the other words for catch-22 students is, you can use the to describe similar situations are paradox and dilemma. Dilemma is a common word we use. Of course, paradox. I'm in a paradox. This also can be used. Next word you can see here is suave. Suave. I have the phonetic written over here. Suave. This is ah. So SW is swa and ah, suave. Suave. So suave. I've written the pronunciation. Now what is suave? Suave is a person who maintains, bodily, exposedly, a very decent look. He looks so suave. Means a very dignified and a decent look to present. Fine. Meaning to be suave is to be smooth, polite, and a little bit cool. Suave. When you go for a meeting, especially for the press meeting, you can understand. All the press people, you can understand what kind of stupid questions they'll be asking. And they make you raged up. But still you have to be suave. You will be dressed up very, very neatly. You feeling punching his nose. Stupid questions they're asking you. But then you stop your anger between your teeth. You smile, controlling your anger in your fist. And you look suave. I suppose you understand, students? So to be suave is to be smooth, polite, and a little bit cool. Sophisticated, very polished in manner and speech. You should be very polished. You're not supposed to use slang language. You're not supposed to express your anger. You try to behave very, very dignified because people will be snapping you. They'll be catching you in their cameras. So you have to be very suave. I suppose you understand the meaning now. Suave is to be very polite, to be very polished, and to be very, very, very mannerful. Now the root word for suave is, the word seems to have a few different roots. Interesting one of the Indo-European root is the word swad. Did you hear this word? A Hindi word. Kya swad hai? Mast swad aa raha yaar. Swad is a pleasant, a beautiful odor. A beautiful odor of fragrance. So, what is swad? Swad is sweet, pleasant. So suave. Suave means to look very, very pleasant, to look very, very cool, to look very, very dignified and mannerful. So examples are, he is so poised and suave, especially in front of the ladies. Poised, balanced. You're getting angry, but you're trying to control with a smile. You're too much happy, but you're trying to control a sternness. So when you're in a very professional post, you can't laugh, you can't joke, you can't talk whatever you want. You have to be suave, very balanced, very, very mannerful. So he is so poised and suave, especially in front of the ladies. Barack Obama is very suave and polished. The word is used when you are trying to say that the polished and smoothness may be on the outside. I suppose you understand. Mostly we use suave for the way you dress up, for the way you express, not what you're inside. How you are expressing, how you're exposing your character and how you're exposing your attire. That is suave. When we look into you, your dress, your mannerism, what you show out should be very, very polished. Then only you have to use the word suave. Fine? So next time you come across this very sophisticated and well-mannered person at a party, remember to say, his suave mannerism is impressive. His suave mannerism is impressive. I'm impressed. My God, see how well he is dressed. See how smart he looks. Using this word can instantly make your vocabulary sound very suave. Look at this. When you use these kinds of words, when you're using these kinds of words, your vocabulary looks suave. Means very, very mannerful. Your vocabulary looks very good. So, your vocabulary is suave. Next one is atrocious. Terrible. Damaging people. Very, very terrible. So here you have your phonetic transcription, atrocious. A very, very short sound where you produce in your larynx. Atro, both are same. Atro, this is U. O, atro, this is sha. Atrocious. Can you see, students? I've given you the phonetic. Atrocious. Still, if you're not good in your phonetics, you have the pronunciation down. Atrocious. Atrocious. So, how do you pronounce the word? Atrocious. Now, let us look into the meaning. Atrocious means very cruel, evil, brutal, terrible, offensive, appalling. My God. You can now understand the meaning of atrocious. Something which is atrocious is cruel, evil, brutal. Brutal means you can't explain how cruel they are. Terrible, offensive, and appalling. Now, from where did this word atrocious is taken? The adjective atrocious comes from the Latin word atrox. From where is it taken? From the Latin word atrox, which means fierce, terrible, cruel. So students, this is a Latin word. What we say, atrox means, that's atrox. Atrox means terrible, very, very fierce and very cruel. So we have the example. The recent incidents of rape in Delhi were atrocious. Really, when you hear the news and when you see how brutally the men are raping the kids and the women, it's really terrible. It's so brutal. It's so evil. Instead of using the simple words, why not we say atrocious, right? So, the recent incidents of rape in Delhi were atrocious. Prisons have been the sites of atrocious mistreatments of prisoners. Do you know how brutally they will be treating the prisoners in the prisons? So, you call it as atrocious. Now, atrocious can also be used in a day-to-day things to exaggerate common wrongdoings. Now, you don't only use for brutal things, terrifying and brutal and, anemic things. Not only for that, but also for common wrongdoings, you can use it. His table manners were atrocious. His table manners means, my God, when you see him eating, you feel like vomiting. Terrible his manners are, his table manners are. Means his dining is very horrible. Her taste in clothes is just atrocious. The way she dresses up is terrible. Okay? His grammar was atrocious. My God, you can't even imagine how vulgar or how harsh his words are, his languages, or his grammar is. So where do we use it? Next time you hear about a horrific act on the news, remember to mark it atrocious. So next time you see something horrifying happening, oh my God, when I'm coming to school, I've seen an atrocious accident. The noun form of it is atrocity. So for atrocious is an adjective. We use a noun form that is a terrible act. Let us see the example, students. Atrocities were committed by armies on both sides of the war. Killing of innocent children is atrocity. So atrocious are the acts. committed by armies on both sides of the war. But the act of killing of innocent children is atrocity. So you have learned how to use atrocis and atrocity in this thing. Now we have stupendous in the 6th word, and that we will have in the next class. So well, students, that's all for this day. Thank you. Have a nice time.